Hell of a start. Hi, guys. What's going on? It is I, the insatiably good-looking Illinois kid. And I got Lily too.
Hello.
And kind of a newer face. Got the top tier analyst himself, the number one competitive Pokemon player in the world, Gray Zepper.
Hello.
Now, Gray Zepper is obviously a little new to this format, so you might ask yourself, what's he doing on this little discussion? He's not allowed at the cool kids table yet. Well, hold your horses before you're so mean. First of all, he set up this very nice server for us with that bear that says recording next to it, so that's on him. And secondly, we thought it would be nice to include a newer player into one of these segments. This isn't an official power rankings by any means. We're just going to talk teams one by one, give like a little rough estimate and thoughts about each team. We like to do something for each of the leagues, even if it's not a straight up power rank. So we're just going to do a nice little chit chat, little Poketalk. And we figured that having someone new to sort of ask us questions or even gauge his own opinions would be really nice for a nice fun video. So that's what we're going to do.
We had to pay an arm and a leg just to get this guy here.
We really did. I definitely did not call him and ask if he wants to do it, and he immediately said yes.
I wouldn't say I just begged you to be on it. I threw the idea out there.
I mean, this kid was begging for it, by the way. Just insane amount of begging.
God, he was annoying.
Yes, he was. But
Hell
okay. Yeah. So, do you guys have anything else you want to say before we start?
No, let's do this.
Okay. So, Dravos is obviously an F tier team, so we can just skip this one. Yeah. We're gonna skip our own team, me and Lil's teams at first, for bias reasons. But yeah, Dravos sucks. So next team. No, Dravos is cool. Lily, you want to say what Monty has for our blind viewers?
Dravos drafted Megazam, Silvally, Dragalge, Piloswine, Comfey, Trevenant, Stakataka, Urshifu Single Strike, that's the dark type one, Talonflame, Electros, Feraligatr, and Exploud.
Thank you for that expert analysis. What do you think about this team?
It's pretty good. It has a lot of physical offense, a powerful special offense in Alakazam, and after that it kind of falls off. That's probably one of its weaker points. In terms of other special attackers, it's Dragalge, the occasional Nixavali, Comfey, Eel, and Exploud. And while Dragalge is probably the next best special attacker there, the rest are a bit more niche and not as powerful. In terms of hazards, he's got T-Spikes with Dragalge, Pilo for Rocks, as well as Stakataka, and that's kind of it, making that probably one of his weaker points. Piloswine will easily fit it onto its moveset any week it comes, but any week it's not coming, he's basically without a rocker. Pivoting is actually pretty good. He's got Flip Turn, Dragalge, U-Turn and Parting Shot with Silvally, and U-Turn with Urshi, as well as Talonflame and Volt Switching Eel. All gonna be good for getting in his offensive pieces, as well as keeping his opponent on their toes. A lot of good mons here.
Yeah, Zam's best friend is a really strong fighting type, and you mix that in with being a ghost resist too. That's like very, very, very nice. I will say that I would have liked to see a better steel type on this team, as I feel that like fairy spam can be a really big problem since your poison type isn't a straight up resist, and your best resist is like Talonflame. I'm just not a fan of that kind of thing outside of the steel type you picked, which is Stakataka. Not crazy defensive. In fact, I don't actually see the point of it being on this team. I don't think it covers anyone's weaknesses. I feel like he needed that more. I feel like he needed more of a defensive steel type here than he did offensive one.
Mm-hmm.
And he spent a tier 3 spot on it too, a wild spot. That wild spot could be tier 2, tier 3A, tier 3B. whatever have you, to scoop up one of the better steel types that are left. I'm sure there are a couple. I haven't actually looked. Maybe there isn't. I don't know. Maybe this is his best option. Who knows? But Stakataka just has far too many weaknesses that you can abuse. I understand the defensive stats are good, but it just has far too many weaknesses that can be abused by secondary typings. So yes, if your opponent has a pure defensive fairy type, you shouldn't have a problem. But if they're like fairy water, all types of stuff, or they have some kind of coverage that's scald or something like that, it'd be a bit of a problem. So yeah, I agree as well. I think that this team is about a B minus. I think it's really offensive, but I do think it's going to lack a bit defensively, and it's going to have a really hard time switching into attack since there's not a lot of sustained recovery on this team, as well as not a ton of Volt Turn. It's not terrible. I've definitely seen worse, but a lot of it's on some of the lower tier mons, which, from speaking from experience, can be a real problem. So, all right. You have any questions so far, Gray, or what's up? What do you think?
I was actually put like somewhat of my 2 cents in. I actually agree with you guys. I do see a bit of a lack of defense, like exponential defense at least. I think the biggest defenses on this team are Stakataka and maybe Piloswine, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There is like an Assault Vestrigology, and then Silvali's pretty defensive, but
Yeah.
and
Right, but
Comfy's fat.
I
He actually
feel.
already proved that week 1. That
Oh,
Comfy's
okay.
fat.
Yeah.
I was gonna say because I feel like Savali, he very much seems more like the wild card since isn't that the one that you give it? It's not the plates, but you can change it to whatever.
It's
you
a
need.
memory. Yeah,
Yeah.
any typing you need. It's 95 in every stat, which is pretty decent to
Okay.
invest in.
So you can then kind of switch it to what you want to make it for the week. Okay. But yeah, I would agree with that. If I'm allowed to give
Of course, no, and
letters,
never allowed.
I would probably agree with your B minus or just flat B even. Just it because I've seen some of you guys play already and seem to be able to work your Pokemon to
B
how you
minus
want
is
to.
like, for me, B minus is like the sweet spot for teams this offensive without really defensive backbones as much, or they invest way too much in their lower tiers for defense. I have no problem with that, but you have to have really fantastic synergies for that to be a good defensive core if you don't have enough like high draft capital to be defensive.
Right.
Because this high draft capital, if you look, he spent a lot of money on that Urshifu Mega Alakazam core, which is really like teaching us how to budget with this sort of tier list. Because I mean, Mega Alakazam and Urshifu, right off the bat, he already made it to where in his freeze, the most expensive Fremont he has outside of Urshifu Single Strike is a 3B, and everything else is tier 4. Like, that's pretty limiting in defensive cores and typings and all that fun stuff. So, and making sure you get everything. So, yeah, that already kind of shows that he had to kind of go with an identity because he spent so much money on an offensive core and just run with it. So, I ran into a similar problem when we talk about me later.
Honestly, looking over the team again, I see a very, very big fighting weakness.
These are
especially in his defensive mons.
I just love Comfy so much. I think it's going to handle almost every fighting type.
Yeah, he's gonna be relying on that mon a lot.
But like, there is also doubling coverage moves, setup, counterplay, all kinds of stuff you can do with that. So, but Comfy is amazing for it. It's good that you have that. You've already used it really well in week 1. Comfy's just really good.
Yeah, that priority draining kiss catches everyone off guard.
You should try to get it.
Can heal back.
You should try to get it moved up a tier.
Honestly.
Okay, Trexo.
Trexo.
I guess I'll start on this one since you started on Travos. Trexo, Mr. Never Runs Defensive Arcanine. How you doing? I am a relative fan of this team. We talked about it a little bit last night. I do have some gripes. But I like this team because of obviously Cinderella's era, That is a really good start. It's also very expensive, like the team we talked about before, which did limit you a little bit in prep. I think Cinderace there is a really good start offensively. They might be two big physical attackers, and you're a bit Scald weak for sure, but it is two types in fire and electric that really complement each other well. Fat Waters, Zera's got bigger electric, Cinderace got, just very basic thought there, nothing too crazy. And then you pair it with a good like Scald switch in and a great way to pressure ground types with a mon like Primarina. I really think Primarina is extremely underrated. It could be a 2B. It's a really do it all kind of mon. And it and Bronzong is actually a core I've used in the past. That's actually really fun. I've never seen a team weaker to Shadow Ball in my life, though. I was telling the Lily about this yesterday. Outside of the Goon, it's just rough for strong Ghost type switch-ins. It's just rough. Also, I just think opposing offense could be a real problem because a lot like Dravos, you invested a lot of your bulk into your lower tier stuff. And I'm not saying that the core of like Chestnut, Primarina, and Bronzong is bad by any means. It can get broken down pretty easily. Chestnut has a plethora of weaknesses and has a hard time recovering, and then Primarina and Bronzong actually don't have access to recover. Again, not always saying that a mon that's defensive, that doesn't have recovery is bad and you should never use it. I'm saying there's a certain synergy to these things, and when you have offense, you typically like to have a stable backbone and a way to keep yourself in games, whereas I feel these two teams might struggle with that. Like longer games, like 40 turn games, 50 turn games, that will happen. You guys probably won't do as well in those because you just don't have enough sustainability. But yeah, strong Ghost. I would say that I really like the offensive core. It's hazard spam in the sense of Chestnut and Galele, but I believe there's only one rocker, which is not ideal. Like you do feel like you have to run boots against this, sure, but maybe you don't care as much about hazard removal against a team like this. I don't know. I'm gonna give this one also just a solid B minus. I see a lot of similarities with Dravos' team here. And I just think you're gonna struggle on a week-to-week basis with developing defensive switch-ins. Every week you're gonna be in the chat probably saying, like, man, I had nothing for this mon or this mon or this mon. It's just gonna start piling up.
Yeah, much like Dravos, where's the special offense on this team? I see Primarina, Espeon, and then it's kind of all just mons that need
Galele,
a lot of yeah, Glalie, but
base 120,
it's just
baby.
a lot of mons that need a lot of help to really start shining if they're gonna run special, such as Regidrago needs fairies out of the way before it can do anything. Venomoth needs to start setting up to become a threat. Zeraora can run the special set, but usually physical has the better move pool and hits harder.
These are facts.
I believe Bronzong and Donphan are the rockers on this team. You have Chestnut for spikes, so you have good hazard setters, and I actually kind of like that Donphan has there's a rocker that's better than Donphan on this team. That way, it's not forced into running rocks week to week. But yeah, speed tiers are kind of just okay. You have the drop from Zera to Cinder, which isn't too bad because what are you filling in that hole realistically? Espeon is occasional bring, but you definitely have to acknowledge it in prep. Then you drop to, I believe, Glalie, who's another sometimes bring. I could see people not acknowledging that in prep. Goon is probably the next, like, set in stone, week to week speed tier after Cinderace, if we're being realistic. Yeah.
That is accurate. You want to finish this up, Gray?
I honestly don't have too much to say about it. Looking at it with my special eyes, um, it seems to very much focus on like wanting to be a hard-hitting physical attack set. Once again, like you said, kind of lacking in that defense department. There's a lot of, and this sounds redundant because there's going to be weakness on every team, but like you were saying, what'd you say, Shadow Ball?
Yeah, it's one of the most ghost weak teams I've ever seen in my life.
Actually, on that point, I believe Chestnut does block Shadow Ball with Bulletproof.
That's
So
accurate.
he
Ghost
has
moves.
one other immunity.
Yeah, ghost moves, I just think are a problem. The ghost typing.
Yeah.
Also, I will mention just real quick, I did skip Donphan whenever I was talking about the defensive core. That is very defensive, maybe even more so than Chestnut, but it's still the same principle, right? Because it also doesn't get
It's going to get worn down, yeah.
So just wanted to make that known.
Yeah, it's going to withstand a couple hits, but you're going to be like probably feeling the pressure as you throw that in to figure out what they're also going to throw in following. At least in my mind, it feels like that's how it's probably going to go. Yeah, I can definitely tell like which teams have kind of been around longer and people who are more accustomed to the draft, because
you don't know anything.
As you'll see once we get to possibly my team, we're gonna be like, oh, this man absolutely knew what he was doing, 100%, no doubts, and
And for the record, these two are some of our best coaches in the league.
yeah,
These two are quite good.
I realize I haven't been given grades. Dravos is probably a B-, Trexo a C for me.
Ooh. Harsh. All right.
I'm a critic.
Not
What
even
can I
C.
say?
Not even C plus. He
Oof.
just said
No.
RC.
C.
C's get degrees, my guy. All right.
They do.
On. So I guess we'll go to Cam Eruption next.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Why don't you talk about your butt buddy here?
All right. Cam Eruption. On paper, this team looks hella threatening. It's got so much strong offense. It's got Magearna, it's got Alola, it's got Mega Garchomp, Mienshao. It's got decent walls in Porygon 2 being probably the strongest one here. It's got Rotom Wash, Mesprit, Wigglytuff. The speed tiers are actually pretty good. If I recall, he's got Crobat at 130, which drops down to Sneasel next. Yeah, Sneasel, then Mienshao. And these are all Mons that you'll probably see enough that you'll have to acknowledge them when building for this team. If I had to point out a problem, Magearna is the only real special offense on this draft. Rotom Wash, while it hits decently, usually does need that plot up to become a big threat. Porygon 2 is going to be running defense more than Spatak. Wigglytuff is a Mon. Mesprit is usually going to be whatever EVs you need for the week, whether that's defensive, sometimes more special offensive. And then after that is kind of the occasional special Garchomp, and then Victory Bell. Rockers are not great, with them being Mesprit probably being your strongest rocker here. Wigglytuff is also going to be a stronger rocker, but it's just hard to bring week to week.
Yeah, it's definitely quantity over quality, right? Because he's got 4.
Yeah, he does have 4, but Marowak and Garchomp are just going to have a harder time running it than Mesprit or Wigglytuff would when they come.
No statement has ever been truer about Chomp. So I wanted to talk about a fun little point about the bottom 2 mons, the Sun Core. I at first, when we were talking about this, I was like, that's actually kind of a W, because if you think about it, those last 2 are going to force way more prep than any tier 4 or 5 combination would, because it's doubling Victory Bell's speed, and now all of a sudden it's a great fairy killer. It's great at busting fat waters. It's good at busting steals because of Weather Ball. But then I kept looking and I said, okay, well, Rotom Wash doesn't have great defenses, so it's not the best fire resist. I believe in Sun, a Banded Darmanitan would 2-shot any variant in the Sun. Magearna's awfully weak to fire, obviously. So I started to look and I'm like, maybe it's like a double-edged sword. Like, it's really good for him offensively for mons like Marowak and Victory Bell, but it's terrible defensively. So it's like, it's really interesting concept. But yeah, Lily said it best. This team is really interesting. It's top heavy. This is one of the more top heavy teams. I will say I do like the lower tier bulk drafting a little more. I like the Porygon 2 find. I like the Mesprit find. I like the Wigglytuff find. As hard as that is to bring, it's still not terrible. And then Rotom Wash, but it's still not a very defensive team by any means. Maybe even less so than the first 2 teams we talked about, making it a lot more susceptible to potential offense. I mean, a strong fighting type kind of ruins this team that has access to like Stone Edge or something, which is not uncommon. And a lot of times they're also going to have access to knockoff. Problem for Mesprit and Marowak, right? So it's interesting. For me, I'm probably going to go C+ here, honestly. I think it's worse than the first 2 teams.
I would probably say the same. I think if you were to make a change, definitely if you're going to double up on Fairy, get a Fairy that resists fighting. I think that would help you a lot. Gray, you got anything? No, he's muted.
Yes, he is.
How professional.
So we just go ahead and move on then. We can talk about Kamala now. It's my turn, right? Yes.
Yes.
Our first team that we're going to talk about today with no Mega. I do believe there are 3 teams in total in the league, or is it just 2?
3 teams.
3 teams in total in the league that do not have Megas, and this is our first one. I always love doing this little case study of how the teams that don't have Megas turn out, because that's a very big conversation with our little community. We have a lot of people that say teams are going to be objectively worse without Megas, I being one of them. And then we have people that say that they're not required to make a great team. So we'll see
I being one of those.
And we'll see how these teams did. So starting off, we got Victini, Kyurem, Swampert, Florges, Alolan Persian, Tangela, Conkeldurr, Tornadus, Therian, Registeel, Gothorita, Kamala, and Shuckle. And I would say a big positive about this is one of the teams that proves me wrong in the sense that it's not like a Mega would really help. You know what I mean? This team isn't really benefited or worse with a Mega. It's just, it will happen. And I can't really think of any typings that I would want to lose to just fit a Mega slot on there. There's also another interesting case study where I'm sure we're going to get to as well. We kind of already touched on it slightly, not too much, where we talk about a tier 5 Mega if it has a lot of impact. So, like I said, we already talked a little bit about Mega Galele and made a few slight jokes, but we'll get into that more too.
I think interesting factoid, all the tier 5 Megas got drafted.
That is very interesting. So this team, to me, honestly took like a different approach than the others we talked about, because we talked about those teams possibly being too offensive. I would argue this team might struggle with offense in general. And I'm sure Shot is somewhere yelling at me right now because this team has a Kyurem on it, which is a tier 1A, straight up. We under-tiered that like crazy. But if you look at the team and the composition, you look at mons like Swampert, Florges, Alolan Persian, Tangela, Registeel, Gothorita, Shuckle. I'm not going to say Kamala because Kamala has the same attack stat as Entei, so it's just hard to bring. You know, it's not that it's not
really?
offensive. It does. They both have base 115.
What the hell?
So I'm not going to say that. It doesn't have a stab move, really, because Facade doesn't get boosted by Comatose, which I think is stupid. But I guess Facade also doesn't work like it doesn't work with sleep. That's something I recently learned. It's just burn,
No.
poison, and Thunderwave, which is so lame because that could have been really cool with Kamala, but it's whatever. But you look at that core and you're like, well, that's not all that defensive. So you look at everything that I believe has at least base 100 in offenses outside of like the mons that aren't going to run a lot of investment per week. Like Swampert, I know has base 110 attack, but I would love to see him run base 110 attack, max invested with Swampert, and watch that thing die in 2 turns. Like and Florgus, same thing. Like max HP, max special attack is probably a little more like likely since the special defense is already so naturally good, but then you have like no physical defense and you only spam Moonblast and Psychic anyway. So in terms of legitimate offensive threats, we'll call it, it's probably Victini, Kyurem, Conkeldurr, and we'll say Tornadus Therian. Because Tornadus Therian has a great speed tier. It has enough coverage to, support Hurricane the move.
Gets
Heat
nasty
Wave,
plot.
Nasty Plot, Knockoff, U-turn, things like that. Victini, no questions here. That thing is stupid. Physically, though, it's not that great specially. But that's not really what you needed. You had a Tornadus and a Kyurem. And then it's probably Conkeldurr after that, of mons that you will bring on a week-to-week basis. Kamala might make an appearance a couple times. I know it's probably your favorite mon, I guess. It's your mascot, at least. Maybe not your favorite, but it's his mascot, at least. So that's probably those 4. And Conkeldurr's going to have bad matchups. Kyurem might not always have the best matchup, or it gets easily revenge killed by your opponent's dragon or fairy. Tornadus is probably a weekly bring, and I would say Victini should be as well. Those are 2 mods that are going to run boots a lot, though, because this team has really not great hazard removal and 2 big rocks weaknesses on the same team. So you're seeing these little
3
flaws and synergies here. Oh, 3 because of Kyurem, right. You're seeing these little flaws and synergies here throughout. And I probably wouldn't be so critical if it wasn't the only offense on the team, because now you're switching out so much and you're needing to make this pivot and that pivot. And it just gets really hard to apply pressure to teams. And I know you're a great coach. You can definitely prove me wrong. It's just we have to analyze these teams as if Gray was using it, or Gray or like, some of the newer coaches that don't have your expertise. That's the point of these discussion videos. It's not how well can Kamala use the team, it's how good is the team, right? Because if we did it by how well the team that Kamala could use, all the best coaches would always be the highest ranked. That doesn't make for a very fun video. So that's wanted to get that little disclaimer out of the way as well, as to why I'm being so critical about the offensive core. Because it's just, and it is, even for you, I feel, going to be difficult to pivot around these type of problems. But back to positives. It is very defensive. It has great Wish Pass. Swampert's the kind of mon that has a good defense stat that is going to appreciate Wish Passes from Florgus, as is Registeel. You are kind of relying on a weaker HP stat to Wish Pass around. So breakers are going to be a problem. Breakers are definitely going to be a problem. Things with higher attack stats. But I think that you have a lot of good plans for your end games. I can't forget about Shuckle as well. Shuckle's so good, so great. I'm sorry, a lot of hazard spamming there.
The
You,
Lord
you,
of
in fact,
Maine.
I would approve.
you won't even need to defog or even run boots, because you'll just make your opponents defog because of Shuckle. So that's good stuff there. So that's my thoughts here. It's I think it's also just one of those average. I'll even say, I think I'll actually give this one a C+ as well as Cam Eruptions. It just has different problems. Like Hat's very upset. You can hear that. I did not like that rating.
This team definitely has a lot of good pieces. You're actually one of the few people who opted for a 1B as your free slot for tier 1 over 1A, but you did still draft a 1A in your points. But yeah, this team has a lot of good pieces, but I just don't know if they mesh together well. Like, I feel like you're going to want a lot of good pivoters on this team, and really the only pivots I see are Swampert and Kamala. That'll help you get in these offensive mons. I feel like Gothorita has no role on this team. I know you love your Shadow Tag shenanigans, but you already had a Tier 1 Psychic type. I don't see what Gothorita is going to do for you that Victini can't do better. Torn is a great mon, but I feel like it's one of the lower end 1As in my opinion. So I don't know how much it's gonna do for you. Regen absolutely makes it a nuisance to deal with, but I think longevity is like a big reason why it's 1A, as well as just the speed tiering. Gray, what do you see?
I see some.
UP.
Got him.
Damn, I have to leave, guys. I'm sorry. I've been destroyed. Yeah, I see a good setter. I'm not as versed in like I can't spout out the exact movesets
That's
of
fine.
Pokemon like you guys, but
Yeah,
like
you got a life. It's cool. You got a life. It's cool.
I don't.
But as you guys were saying, like I see a lot of special attack on this team. The physical attack I don't see a lot of, and Conkeldurr probably will be your biggest, and I think each of the teams that we've seen so far has like a fairy or a psychic that will decimate Conkle. And I don't know Conkeldurr's base defense or special defense.
So it's really not the greatest. I think it has 95 in physical defense or something like that. But
Yeah.
really where it gets its bulk from is its HP, because I think it's like 110 or something like that. So
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like that seems to be your hardest physical hitter, and that's gonna for Pokemon that are like super uh super defensive. I think I'm going down the right path of train of thought.
don't overthink it.
Yeah. It feels like there's not a lot of variety and option for your physical attackers. But that
Yep.
being said, it seems that it was put together with a focus, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, at least in my mind. So I would say C plus.
He said he doesn't like his draft, but
No.
yeah, he did say that. But like,
Disregard everything I just said then.
he's a good coach. He's a good coach. He's been around the block a few times, so he's definitely going to be a competitor. So it is the next team's turn now.
Kamal's probably a C for me.
See?
Did I say the same thing? I said C, right? Or did I say C plus? I think I said C.
I think you said C.
Yep.
Yeah, you said C, and you said you were sad about it.
Final answer C. And I am sad about it. I want Kamala to get A plus plus. I want this to be an S tier game.
Will you cry on video?
I will. I will do that.
Thank you.
Show you're a man.
Champ Lando. It's not my turn.
Champ Lando. One of the coaches I brought in. Another one of the coaches I brought in, actually.
We're just gonna flex like that. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. You have yours. I got mine.
Yeah, but I'm one of his, so I mean that doesn't like boost him in the recruitment.
What are you saying? You're amazing. I've seen you play 0 matches.
Yeah, but you've seen my draft.
Anyway, off topic.
Not really, but yeah.
Lando. You drafted a interesting team. A lot of speedy mons, a lot of slow mons. You actually probably have the most balanced team, offense and defense wise so far. You got the Protean Gren, you got Magnezone, Scolipede, Zapdos, Shaman, Mega Bayonet as your most offensive mons, and then Hatterene, Jellicent, Goodra. Shaman actually works defensively too. Mudsdale and Avalugg as your more defensive mons. I think while you are very, very low on hazards, you do have like good setters for them. Scolipede loves its speed boost, turn one lead, spike, T-spike shenanigans. I don't know if that's as effective in draft as it is on ladder, but I know that's what it's best known for doing. Protean Gren is a great mon with its ability to change types to what you need week to week, meaning it's not technically a water and dark type. So I like that you did draft a backup water and a backup dark type so that it doesn't feel pressured to be those types week to week. Interesting you went with Mega Bayonet when you already had a Ghost and Jellicent. I get they do serve very different roles, with Prankster and just being a much more offensive Ghost type, and Jellicent obviously playing the more defensive role. But when you think about it, they do also do very similar things, where they're going to want to burn their targets, they're going to want to take down opposing mons with them, because Prankster debond, Jellicent's just going to like try and toxic and wear down what it can. And while you have almost no removal on this draft, with Avalugg being literally the only thing here, you did draft a Magic Bounce Mon, and I think the sole focus of this team is to pressure your opponent into defogging so Zapdos can go in with Defiant Boost, which I think is a fine strategy, but maybe you want to get another defogger just so that you're not relying so hard on forcing your opponent to do it for you, especially in a meta where we can easily boots anyone we want. I think Magnezone is a bit pointless on this team. You have a lot of great ways to break steel types already, making its best usage magnet pull not so necessary. Absolutely, it can run analytic sets, and it will have almost no switch-ins when it gets that analytic boost, but in terms of reliable abilities, Magnet Pull doesn't have much need on this squad.
Yeah, and then you can just run Shed Shell, honestly, anyway.
Yeah.
That's going to be the first thing I do if I run into a steel type Magnet Pull. Yeah, you kind of nailed it on the nose there. I will say also about to the point of the hazard stacking, it's also fine if they don't defog, because that means they have to deal with Zapdos and a layer of hazards, which is going to chip those walls down really easily. So that's actually kind of a nice like double negative there, and the boots is going to make them absorb both the attacks, as in they only have to deal with the close combat hit because they don't have to deal with hazard damage because again they're rocking with boots. But it's still a really good stab combination, and you really don't want to boots everything in a given week. So at some point, you might want to try to get a defog off, which is risking Zapdos coming in, or also set up hazard yourself, which is risking Hatterene coming in and bouncing them back. But overall, all this is pretty unreliable. Not something you can really bank on a week-to-week basis because it does require your opponent to do something, which is never the most solid strategy. But other than that, yeah, he already talked about it. Like type synergy is, it's pretty okay put together. It's also a lot of these teams actually aren't terribly defensive. Like a lot of these teams, this being no exception. Honestly, like I still don't think Hatterene's a great mon. I know it's everybody has their different opinions on certain mons. I don't like Hatterene. I think it's a tier 4. And I tried to get it voted to tier 4. I got horribly outvoted. But I tried to make this thing a tier 4 just because I don't really like it. I don't think it's that great. Especially as a team's only fairy. But, that's just my opinion, man. But yeah, pretty good team. For me, with it being, again, so offensively top heavy, I'll probably go C+ range just because I really like the hazard spamming Zapdos combo. It should get you pretty far. Shaman and Magzone are also going to be nice to break fat waters that wall Zapdos, which is, cannot believe I just said that out loud. But yeah.
Oh.
And Gren probably is going to have a harder time with water, so it's nice to have like the combination of Magzone and Shaman to pressure
Grassnot
them.
does more than you think.
That's true. But like when I think about mons like Gren, I think like 4-move syndrome can be a bit of a problem.
Oh, absolutely.
And they really want to click their stab moves more than they're like stab moves as in like ice beam, as in like ice beam and hydro pump, the meta moves I'm trying to say. Hitting in Grassnot is it's there. He's right, it's there. I'm not trying to say it's an awful strategy, but I'm trying to say it's just above suboptimal.
I recall I had Protean Gren Season 1, and I was kind of surprised how much Grassnot does with stab.
Hey, and it's something I'm honestly woefully experienced with. I could be wrong. Maybe Greninja is the best water counter in the game. But I just think having Magnezone and Shaman and Gren, we'll say, is still nice for Zapdos because Zapdos generally doesn't have like one type that walls it. It just, you have to bring something that's pretty like neutral to fighting flying because there's not, I don't believe, anything that can resist fighting flying in the game, if I'm correct. One like type or type combination that can resist fighting
Ghost
flying.
Rock.
Ghost Rock, there it is. Well, that's
the typing that doesn't exist.
There you go. Steel water for a non-existent Ghost Rock type. So yeah, pretty solid support for Zapdos and Gren. That's why it gets rated a little higher than some of the other teams, but not as high as the B minuses. So I'll go C+.
Probably B- for this one.
So, my thoughts on this. I could be misunderstanding the meta, of course, but isn't you guys talk about like defogging and taking care of hazards and stuff like that, and wanting to make sure that you have like a couple options for those. If I remember correctly, with Gen 8, didn't Rapid Spin, or it may not have been Gen 8, but isn't Rapid Spin also a viable way to deal with hazards, and wouldn't Magnezone
that's what
get that?
does. Magnezone does not get spin.
Oh, really? Okay. For some reason, I thought it did.
Avalugg does.
That'd be so nice if it did, though.
Yeah, like I feel like that would make it like a lot more. I feel like that would kind of get rid of.
I feel like there's not enough
on
viable spinners.
And you can see why we're scratching our heads at the Magzone selection now. It doesn't get spin, doesn't get rocks, breaks waters, which is some kind of slide to Zapdos, but you could have found electric elsewhere. And then also, you know what? To the point of this too, this is one of the teams with lower tier Mega, but that doesn't help with this team at all. This is one of those teams that Bennett is next to useless, honestly. And Typing was already covered. You have better breakers. Just not useless. No mon is useless, but one of those teams that a Mega here doesn't make this team better than if it didn't have a Mega, for instance. Right. So that's great argument for Team Lily right there. I think it's inherently worse because it doesn't have good Mega synergy, but that's neither here nor there.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I'll say with the doubling up, having the backups, which in my mind, Mega Bayonet could be their backup for Jellicent, since oddly enough, Jellicent is kind of their backup for Greninja. Going off of the point that you made, Lily, But yeah, I would say with the makeup of this, I'd probably go C plus writing B minus, like barely. It's so close, but
Okay. Next, Team Rooney. Fuzzy, my best worst friend. What's up, man? So, I think we went back and forth with this team quite a bit because weren't we pretty confused?
Yeah.
Yeah, because just to refresh my own memory, I'll start talking here. I at first saw it and I was like, okay, it's not necessarily a rain team. It just has good speed control. With Politoed setting rain for the likes of Kingdra and only Kingdra, right?
Yep.
And Coco boosting up Raichu and Hitmonlee's speed potentially. Even though Unburden is infinitely a weaker set than Reckless, IMO. That's kind of what you're looking at with this team. And it feels like this team really struggles with speed when it doesn't get to double its stats because Raichu is not a weekly bring. And it's just big Coco. And then it's down to like Yuxi and Hitmonlee and Kingdra. So it can be viewed as quite slow outside of rain and when rain turns aren't set, which really makes you want to run Politoed a lot. You either want to bring Politoed or Alolan Raichu in that sense, but Alolan Raichu doesn't cover the speed tier that you need in the speed tiers between 130 and 95 when the terrain is up, which it could be up a lot. Now it's just fast to be fast. So with not bringing Raichu enough, let's make that as a given. It is very easy to run Adamant and Modest on this team for free.
Yep.
And that's one of our biggest gripes with defensive cores, especially with a team that isn't that defensive. If you look at his core, there's not a lot here that can sustain itself and sustain damage. In fact, probably the best two candidates are Miltank and Cradilly, which are terribly weak to close combat. Switch in being Yuxi, terribly weak to knockoff. And also not durable. It is here to take 3 or 4 big hits in the game and then it goes down. It's kind of a common theme here. We're running into teams that don't have a lot of longevity. Now, is this team... What's up?
We can't ignore Gliscor.
You didn't let me finish.
Okay.
I was going to talk about Gliscor. I was. Because Gliscor is the only exception to this. That's what I was going to say. Does this team... I was actually in the middle of saying have it. Lily's the word interrupts. No, I'm kidding. Does this team have something that trumps what I just said? Yes, Gliscor. But that and Miltank are, and like I said, Cradilly are pretty much it. And I know Miltank is becoming a lot more of a common bring in this league than a lot of other leagues I've seen. So that just kind of leaves Gliscor and Miltank, which is a good core, but again, it's really all you have. And think about Gliscor and Rain for a second. Terrible, terrible synergy. Because that move Scald that is so prevalent is now hits harder and can potentially burn Miltank and Miltank, that other switch in. And then we go back to Cradilly, Storm Drain, right? Water types get Ice Beam. And Storm Draining does boost your special attack, which is good to pressure out those water types, but it does kind of create counterplay. It's not reliable, right? Is what I'm trying to say. So I struggle defending this team defensively is my point I'm trying to make throughout all this, because the one thing it had going for it in the Gliscor Miltank core gets weakened by rain. And I was about to talk about offensively, this team is solid with great spikes. Coco is one of the best mons and probably my favorite mon in the format. It's starting to be Weavile, though, I'm not going to lie. But Coco is definitely up there. That Coco Raichu core is going to be deadly when he brings it. The Kingdra is going to be really great in or out of rain with crit sets or rain sets. I love Hitmonlee. I've talked about it a bunch. It's a great breaker. I think the Reckless set is a little better in terms of breaking than the Unburdened set is at sweeping, but that's neither here nor there. Glacier is really good too. It's got a great physical attack stat. Not a ton of special attackers though, is there? It really is. Isn't it just the sweepers there and Kingdra and Raichu?
Coco, Kingdra, Raichu, yeah.
And Coco's got 95. It's not as known for that. But it can do it, right?
I think it runs special more often.
It's not as strong though, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Like you suffer you
That's
pick
Pokeballs.
Fairy Stab. There's Pokeballs. You pick Fairy Stab for weaker attacks, in my opinion, like weaker electric spam, right? Because you're firing off a 95 attack stat versus a 115, so you can hit with Stab Fairy. I think it's a solid team. Again, offensively, I think it lacks defensive. I haven't talked a lot about Spiritomb. It's kind of an unmon to me. It's not necessarily super bulky, not necessarily super strong. It's just a weird mix of both. Assault Vest
You're
sets
not
are
incorrect.
good. Assault Vest sets are good, but you can say that about every mon. Pretty much everything gets better with an Assault Vest, so I hate it when people say, oh, don't forget about Assault Vest. Such a bad argument. Everything is good with an Assault Vest, except mons that heal. Right? Like, that's so dumb. But, yep, that's this team. I think Fuzzy can make this work. I think it's going to take some figuring out, because I would probably have a hard time generating pressure with this team. I gotta be a little harsh here. Probably going to get a C- for me. I'm sorry.
Yes. I look at this team and I'm just trying to. I see a lot of powerful mons that can definitely clean up games, but I struggle to find those mons that just go in early game to get those sweepers in position in the late game.
Mainly just Lee and maybe Kingdra, right?
Yeah, you're gonna have to rely on Reckless Hitmonlee more than you think. Kingdra is gonna have to get in position faster, which makes it unfortunate that your range setter is Politoad, because that, unlike Pelipper, it does not pivot.
Wasting a turn of rain, kind of, in a sense, too.
Yeah, you don't get Kingdra in as safely either. Honestly, you drafted Uxie in your 2B slot. You probably could make that Pelipper if you really wanted to, because I believe that's 2B.
I think
I
so
could be
too.
wrong.
And then you could make the 3A one of the psychic types that are left. I'm sure there's a couple.
Yeah, or you could just move Uxie down there.
True that.
So if I were to make a suggestion for your last transaction, that would probably be it. It is kind of unfortunate that you are down to 1 transactions when your team could use some help still. But I know you also messed up a bit in during the draft, and you tried your best to bring this back. I think you did good. It looks better than it was before.
I am so dumb too. Yes, Brandon, tier 3 Yuxi is very viable. I'm so dumb. I just see it in the tier 2. I'm like, oh, it's a 2B. Yes, though, I would agree. That last transaction should be spent on. Pelipper doesn't even really share any weaknesses with Gliscor, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, they complement each other pretty well. I give this team a Cramorant spitting out a fish out of 10.
Okay.
That's like I don't even know how.
It's like 23 out of 10.
Yeah.
Really likes this team. Damn.
Impressive. Yeah, I don't see a lot going for this team. Like, kind of like you guys were saying, I hate that, one, I don't know as much as you guys, and two, that, like, since I don't know as much, I'm kind of the last to go. So I feel like I'm just reiterating everything you guys are saying. I'm just like the kid, like the little brother, who's like trying to hang out with like your friends, and it's like, yeah, what he said.
It's really
But-
funny. I think you might be older than both of us, so it's really funny you say that.
Yeah.
Look at this old
Listen,
man.
if we do anything with D&D, I will take the role that you guys are taking, but but yeah, like, you have a couple really big hitters, I know Tapu Koko is like one of the mons that everyone just like gushes over all
Sick.
the time.
It's a sick mon.
Yeah, and you have a couple really good synergies. Don't know how consistent and sustainable those synergies are going to be for you. So, yeah, and it does kind of suck that this was like this is your cleanup team, but there's still entirely possible that you could pull a hat trick and come out like this being MVP of the season, just like with any of these other teams where you just something clicks and you know exactly what you're doing and you have like galaxy brain, but on
That's fuzzy every
paper
week.
on paper I would say probably a C- as well, just because it feels very thin in that respect. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm
Yeah,
saying
no, you're good.
it.
One of those old timer.
Here we go. Okay, so Lily, why don't you
All
go
right.
ahead? Before we
Yeah.
get started, this is our friend Gray Zepper here.
Hello.
We're gonna talk about this team. When we started this whole process, the whole idea of Zepper even being in a league, I told him that I need him to draft what he wants to draft. And I need him to come up with, I told him to get 6 mons together that he would like to build a team around. And he did. And those 6 mons are actually on this team. They are. Now,
One isn't.
one isn't? I'm sorry. Which one?
Mantine.
That's right. So these mons are here because this is his first go at this and he really wants to see how he could the team. And I told him that no matter what the PR guys say, draft what you want, draft what's fun. We will work on the rest later. So here comes that PR conversation. It's not going to be a pretty one, but
Absolutely not.
do not listen to us in the sense of do what you want this season. We'll work on building you meta teams next season, but for now, what you got, Lily?
All right. Easily the worst team in the league. Met the guy, not impressed. Nothing to really talk about. No, but seriously. The first
It is really bad.
the first biggest issue is this team is glass cannon as hell. We got Zam, we got Darm, we got Gengar, we got Zangoose. Honestly, Pangoro too.
You shut your mouth about Zangoose.
You know Zangoose is paper thin.
Zangoose
It's
is the
gonna
best
hit.
wall in the game and the best breaker in the game and the best mon in the game. Shut up.
I
Fuck
don't know
you.
if that's true, man. Your only rockers are Como and Rhyperior, and those are more like tanks or setup mons than they are rockers.
I can't believe we're in a meta where we're calling Rhyperior a setup mon.
Rock polish and sword stance are things we can't deny.
VGC taught us that.
I've seen it in draft too.
I have as well.
Mega Scizor is probably your bulkiest mon on this team. In terms of other bulky mons, Rhyperior is more so a tank than good at that defensive role, despite the huge HP and defense stat. Lapras is a fine mon, but you may find it hard to bring week to week because of its plethora of weaknesses. It also just doesn't have that sustainability that it would love to have with its fat HP stat. Como, I know IL mentioned you do things like iron defense body press with it, and that those are fine sets. But I don't know if I would consider those its best sets. Uh, just otherwise, the speeds are a bit all over the place. I think your fastest mon is Alakazam, and then you just straight Gengar, and then you kind of just start dropping a lot there, either clumping up in the same spot or it's just a lot of physical offense yet again, with Zam and Gengar probably being your best special attackers. But I also feel like they don't do much for each other, kind of hitting the same things just as effectively as the other would. Absol and Pangoro do literally nothing for each other. Pangoro you keep over Absol any day of the week. I think the only thing Absol has that Pangoro doesn't is like 10 more in its speed stat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm professional, I swear.
I can't believe you didn't bring up the no fairy type.
Oh yeah, no fairy. I forget about that one.
Yeah, no
We
fairy.
haven't really talked about typings too
Right.
much.
But they've had meta typings. This says no fairy and no flying, actually.
Oof.
Yeah. So it's a little rough for that earthquake spam when he's got Darmanitan, Gengar, Rhyperior, Electivire, right?
Yeah.
So and same things I would say. And what Woodlow is trying to superior, yes, is defensive, but it doesn't have sustainability like something like a Scizor would. So Mega Scizor is probably the most sustainable mod on this team. And the offenses are a little all over the place. It's probably not as dipping much in special. There are fun Kamo sets you can run, like the clanging scale sets, like throat spray or something. That's kind of cool. There's Spec Slapras, probably, right?
Yeah.
But overall it is very physically oriented, and with it just missing two of the best types that are must-haves in every draft, it's gonna suffer. And with all the things Lily talked about, with it having a hard time getting offensive pressure going, at least the beginning of games, and kind of relying on Darmanitan to provide that, which is a pretty one-dimensional game plan, I'd consider this. Love you, buddy, but I consider this like a D team.
I give it a triple F minus.
Well, at least I'm not that mean.
Oh, I made him cry.
Do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about your own team?
Uh,
I don't think he does, but he will.
I mean, I do want to like defend myself partially.
Okay.
But I mean, it was.
Don't say what you're considering to get. By the way, just keep
Oh
that
no,
to yourself.
I was gonna justify my choices.
All right.
As I told IO Kid when he brought me into this, my goal is to essentially have a all-out brawl and hit hard and have them hit hard back, and at the end of it we are both content with who wins because we both like hit like freight trains or something like that. So
It's a good league for
that. But like I do recognize where you guys are coming from with a lot of like missing the fairy and the flying type, because those are really good for countering and taking care of some really big hitters. But I would say I picked just about every single one of these mons with a purpose in my own mind and a justification for taking each one. And some of them are a little more on like the meme side of justifying, but like a super luck Absol with, was it scope lens? And just like spamming
probably Night Slash.
Yep, that one. Like, no, not many people are going to be expecting. Like, my big tactic was like confusion. No one expects Absol to be drafted. No one expects someone to bring Absol and attempt to make it a viable core for their team. But
He's not wrong.
But I do recognize the issues here. Also, I think Darmanitan, if I run Scarf Set, is my fastest mon.
You
Yes.
could say that about a lot of things.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Because Electivire, I'm pretty sure has the same speed, right?
Oh, does it? Okay. I thought Darmanitan was faster. My bad.
And an also viable Scarfer on your team, Gengar.
Yes.
And an also viable Scarfer on your team, Alakazam.
But I have a different plan for Alakazam. But yeah, honestly, if I were to grade my own, I would absolutely give it like a D minus.
Well, it's better than a triple F minus that Lily gave it.
Listen,
You're
I'm
welcome.
teetering on an F because this was my first ever draft, and I'm used to playing Pokemon like traditional style, where you get your 6 Pokemon at the beginning of the game, and you just overlevel your starter. So I'm trying to get into that.
Eventually. You'll be a
People
god
do that?
eventually.
But yeah, I fully expect to have the lowest tiered team on this draft, and I can't wait until I prove everyone wrong and somehow like get top 3 maybe.
And it is very much first time, very much first draft. My first 3 draft picks ever were Mega Venusaur, Arcanine, and Vaporeon. Not the best little draft core there, but I thought, hey, Fire, Water, Grass, that's awesome. But you have guys like me. You also have guys like Lily. First words when they were born was, "How much damage does this do?" So it
How
happened.
did you know?
So,
It's weird that he picked up the scalpel and took it from the doctor's hand.
So another one of my friends who drafted a bad team mocking you. Oh God, it's my turn.
I'll go
Okay.
ahead and get my disgustingness out of here.
Okay. Mocking you. All right, listen. Sorry, I got added in another. I'm being made fun of. But
It's
this
okay, Dralos won't shut up.
this man said, "Okay, I'm gonna build the sickest Hydreigon mega team you've ever seen in your life." And then I think round 2 that got thwarted somehow, and he had to backtrack. And then it got put back in free agency, and he doesn't care to pick it back up. Just already content with this team. So this is the team we got, and this team is so interesting. To say the very least. I love it. It's sporting 1 rocker on the whole team. It's probably my favorite aspect of the team. Because silly me, it does get spikes and toxic spikes, right? Yes, no.
Cloister does, yeah.
Roserade. Roserade gets toxic spikes.
And Roserade, yeah.
Yep. And then Sticky Webs right by Bombi. It actually has every form of hazard. Just 1 per. Which I'm just a hater for saying that's not good. I mean, shit.
Coverage.
Good coverage. But on a realistic note, I will say that this is one of the teams I felt was more balanced because it has fat stuff like Celesteela Cress, and Rhydon is pretty tanky, and Roserade is pretty sustainable, surprisingly, with a good special defense stat, just a plethora of weaknesses. And Dusknoir can be pretty sustainable with Pain Split as well, so it's pretty tanky, and it also has good offenses. It just really lacks utility, and I would say like decent speed and decent setup. Because when it comes to setup, you do have like Quiver Dance Ribombi, which is good if like your opponent is bad, in my opinion, because I don't think Ribombi hits hard enough, even with a Quiver Dance boost, that you can't just switch into a hard physical threat that basically isn't weak to Fairy or Bug and then take it out.
Literally any steel type.
Literally any steel type is a great start. I would also say literally any fire type is another great example. And then Cloister Shell Smash is unarguably good, but it's also pretty weak to a lot of the major priorities. It's probably going to take a big hit and then maybe not be in a good enough range to take a bullet punch, and then it's weak to Mach Punch. So it's pretty easy to revenge some of this stuff that wants to get going. And Dragon Anti-Dragon is like a half set. Like, if you're great at the game, you've been doing it for a while, you have a great team around Dragon, you can make it work. Or you can crunch a Necrozma like a stupid head and lose an entire game because they run berries. You could do that too. But, you know, who remembers that, right? It was only 2 seasons ago, right? Or 1 season ago. I lost a game to
It's
Lily.
a different league altogether.
I lost a game to Lily because I crunched his Necrozma like a stupid. That's kind
He
of
went for this super effective move.
Yes, I did.
That's exactly what I wanted.
When outrage killed. But you know what? We're not talking about me right now. We're talking about Nick. So it's just really solid. If it had more utility, I would say it's better. This is one of those teams where I do like his offense. I do like Hydreigon comparatively with Megalopony. I do like that core. And I do like that he has one of the best fairy resists in the game in Celesteela, even if he doesn't use it really to that extent, because week 1 shows he didn't. But it's there, and it's a good core to the team. Because it also covers fighting types really well for Hydreigon and Lopunny, covers fairy types for the two of them, and then offensively they're great. And Roserade is a really good throw in the mix as well when you have so much pressure on steel types with Hydreigon spamming Earth Power and Megalopony obviously clicking its stab moves and Rhydon spamming Earthquake and things like that. Like Roserade's a good Delphox also. He used that week 1 too to a great effect. But just because of the utility, it gets a C plus for me. It could be like a B plus A minus team if it just had a little more utility.
I'm looking at this team right now, and the first thing I notice is Megalopony is the only physical attacker on this draft. You got Rhydon, who hits hard, sure, but he's only coming so much. He's slow. He's not always getting off the damage you need. Cloister needs setup to become a threat. And then Hydreigon is usually just better as a nasty plotter, special send general.
Yeah, that is pretty bad actually. That's a good point.
Your fairy is fake in Ribombi, but you also have another fake fairy in Cresselia who should be running Moonblast pretty consistently anyway. So I find that kind of funny. I'm not sure why Morpeko is the electric type you chose to go with, to be honest. It's basically the same speed stat as Hydreigon, and that's just a better dark type. Morpeko's just very niche. I would even say it's overpriced, more tier 5. Just because it's so frail. Doesn't hit super hard, and kind of just relies on one move. Double's a bit of an interesting pick too. I'm just gonna assume that's something you've been wanting to try. I hope it works out for you. It gets 0 moves to hit ghosts, so that's fun.
Just don't have a ghost type.
Yeah, that's the theme of this draft. Hope your opponent doesn't have a ghost. You brought Celesteela week 1 more offensively, I believe. Well, no, because you got a Spadef boost, so I'm not sure what you were running.
I don't think he was either.
Madness.
But I think on this draft, Celesteela is forced into a more defensive role just because you already have a decent amount of offense to back it up, and it complements Cresselia decently well, though your defensive backbone is incredibly knockoff weak, which is a pretty big problem, since neither one has, or Cresselia is the only one with reliable recovery here. And it's just a very low PP recovery too. You do have the hazard. I'll mention you do have the hazard setters, but they're not reliable hazard setters. Rhydon will probably fit rocks onto its move pool, sure, but Roserade is gonna spam the occasional spike, but it's not gonna get up those spikes consistently week to week. It's gonna maybe want to focus a more offensive role when you bring it. Unless I'm mistaken, and I think I am, you do have a pretty big speed gap from Ribombee, which drops down to, where was it? Delphox. And both of those are more of mid-tier picks, honestly. Like, you might bring them every week, but it's more likely you're not going to. Meaning your opponents have a pretty sizable gap from Lopunny to Hydreigon to take advantage of. Gray, what you got?
I know him, so S tier, perfect draft. 10 out of 10. Like, I see potential. I know that when I was speaking with Kid before start of draft season and everything, he was talking about how much he like shrimps for Megalopony and how good it is. I do see some decent defense capabilities here. And I think special defense isn't terrible either. Nope, I'm thinking of Dusclops and not Dusknoir. Never mind. But
I mean, same stat.
yeah, but I was thinking like Eviolite, Dusclops.
That is bulkier than Dusknoir, yes. You
Yeah.
draft Dusknoir for more offense because Dusclops is passive.
Right. But yeah, like I see potential. I don't know if it's the potential that benefits this league or what, but I do see different possibilities and outcomes. I would say probably a C, a solid C.
I'm gonna go D plus.
Yeah, because you called them fake fairies. Is there a flying?
Celesteela,
Okay, I wasn't sure if Celesteela was.
which
I
is
thought
kind
it
of a
was
fake flying.
Steel.
It's true. No defug, no roost.
So
It's a weird one.
Mock just went for the like imposter team.
You got the fake normal and Megalopony too.
Fake mons all around.
Yeah, but he has the true normal in double.
Is that a fake water and Cloyster as well?
And double's a secret fighting type because all it wants to do is body press.
Yep. Yo, body press, but doesn't double keep Fluffy?
Fluffy is added into press damage, yep.
Okay, yeah. I mean, Short of a fire type.
Delphox.
DJ Cold Cut. This is my week 1 game. This is the second team with no Mega?
Yes. No, third. Fuzzy was the second.
That's right. We didn't really... We have to bring up the Mega point with Fuzzy.
Fuzzy or shit for no Mega.
Yeah, what the hell, bro? No, I don't really see how it helps his gimmick. But I'm sure you could have found a Mega with one of his picks. Yeah, I think you actually said Mega Swampert would be beneficial on that team. So that's a team that could use Mega, actually. Okay, so point for Brandon.
Yeah.
DJ Cold Cut. Last team with no Mega.
Yeah. I know you had a different plan before race period, and then you saw Scizor drop, and you're like, oh, I need that Mon. I'm not positive it did you a lot of good, but I could tell it was just something you really need to have. But let's go over it. Basically, you dropped some speed tiers to pick up Scizor. You had Beedrill, who was a base 145 above Darkrai, but I think Darkrai also just dropped straight down to Jirachi at base 100, which was a bit of an issue. And now you have Latios to fill in that gap. I think one of the biggest problems that arose from the trades is you just gained a lot of special offense, and Azumarill and Scizor are probably your only physical offense. Higher tier physical offense, rather.
Torgeist.
Yeah.
Hitmontop, the toppest tier. Hence the top part of his name.
I feel like Top's more of a support mon than offensive, but it certainly is a threat when offensive.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Stop lying.
Okay. It sucks. You should drop it.
Terrible.
Use your
Honestly,
last
worst Hitmon at me.
I might not disagree, to be honest.
Yeah, isn't it? Is because top is how you get top when you have just like
Which is ironic
neutral
because
stats,
I think it's the
right?
most expensive.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like worst in terms of draft. Obviously, that role
They're all pretty good.
That role is reserved. Hitmonchan is probably the worst, but I just think it's
No.
my least favorite.
Are you kidding? Hitmonchan got bulk up.
I came up with that set. I actually gave it bulk up myself. Like I added it in the
Yes.
game.
He added Game Freak and they gave it.
Yo, your dad's Nintendo?
Yes.
My dad is Nintendo. That's why it's so hard to get a hold of him.
Why did Jesus.
We digress. But yeah. You have a lot of special offense. Darkrai, Nidoking, Latios. These are going to be your premier mons you're bringing most weeks, and that's already 3 special offensive mons you have on your week as your common brings. Togedemaru kind of has no role on this team. You already had a steel type, you already had an electric type. I'm sure you had a reason why you were like, oh, this is the mon I need in this slot. Or maybe you were just throwing away the pick because it didn't matter too much. I don't mind the double up on Bug because Masquerain is a very different mon from Scizor. Providing webs, has hella coverage despite being a bug type. Which will throw a lot of people off guard. Little do they know, it gets Energy Ball, Ice Beam, Hydro Pump, in addition to just being a typical bug flying. Licky Licky is a thick ass wall to have, but it's kind of, unless you're bringing Scizor as a defensive monolot, it's kind of your only defense on this team. Gourgeist might fill the role occasionally. Claydol's alright. Rotom Heat serves many roles. I guess Top's more like a tank, honestly. In terms of removal, you have Rotom Heat, Hitmontop, and Claydol, which is all pretty acceptable. Scizor too, but I feel like Scizor just struggles to fit Defog onto its week-to-week moveset. Rockers are Claydol and Nidoking, so not the best, honestly. Nidoking also provides a T-Spiker, but once again, Nidoking, maybe you should have put Queen there. I think I recall you had Latias on this plan originally, so I liked King more because Latias is bulkier than Latios. And which is why I thought, oh, King's fine. But with the Latios, I probably would have suggested Queen instead. My grade for this one is probably a B.
Yeah, definitely the stuff you said. It is a lot of that gray, like, because when you go first, you get first stabs at things, and you get the majority of it for sure. As for going against it, this was my week 1 team, and now that it's said and done, I can feel more comfortable about talking about the matchup. I felt that it could be slightly hard to kill, and I felt that the team is very endgame conscious, as it has a lot of ways to beat you. Like Darkrai, Azumarill, potential Latios, like Scarf Latios. Scarf King is good at cleaning up. It's not as good as Life Orb King, but Scarf King is still viable. It has a lot of ways to slow the game down with things like Licky and Gorgeist. I was even a little worried about Claydol being a pretty good arrow switch-in, I felt, if it had a good defensive investment. Which is saying a lot for Claydol. It's good for Claydol. And then it also has fun little niche things, Masquerain Webs and Togedemaru, guaranteed paralyses that can warrant some prep. But yeah, a lot of niche stuff there. It doesn't have a lot of mid-game pressuring tools, and if you do run certain Pokemon that like use those mid-game pressuring tools, like a Specs Latios or a like Bandit Azumarill, I feel like you're worsening your end game a little bit. Or you could even say the same thing for a Darkrai that doesn't have. I think we allowed plot this league.
Yep.
It already used it week 1. It killed a Reuniclus. Good job. Feel like I could have done that without the plot, but good job. But
The
yeah,
shade.
overall, just offensively, I just remember not being that worried in the middle of the game. I was trying to get my offense in good positions to win. But however, love you, Cold Cup, but you did throw against me pretty hard, man. That was supposed to be your win. But yeah, good game and good team. I'd also probably say a solid B. So another team that doesn't necessarily need a mega to be a B, but it's just so easy to switch out some of the stuff to find a mega.
And to think it originally had a B. A mega B.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is. You said there's a couple different things on here that were good removers, right?
Rotom, Hitmontop, Claydol.
Just those 3?
Latios and Scizor as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the most removal we've seen, right?
Yes, and the most removal we're going to see.
Yeah, I mean,
because technically Masquerain gets it too.
So you're not that worried about hazards generally, I imagine. So I guess you can try and focus on like other things that you want to deal with, since you have so many different options to adjust to your upcoming battle. Outside of that, decent coverage in my opinion. Got a couple maybe just one double up typing with Masquerain and Scizor. But, I mean, that's not...
Don't forget Togedemaru.
Togedemaru.
Togedemaru. It's so fun to say. That's my favorite thing about that Pokemon is just how to say it. Because I've literally had no interaction with Togedemaru. But yeah, I mean, I definitely would call this a viable team. Giving it a pretty basic B. I don't see anything like jumping out of me like this is mastery. So many brain creases. But
Too many brain creases.
It's not smooth brain, it's not galaxy brain. It's a B. I'm so glad we're not like doing an actual ranking because I would like die.
So far, B is the highest ranking too, by the way.
I thought you gave someone a B plus.
I didn't.
I feel like one of you gave a B plus.
I might have. I don't recall now.
Yo,
I think I gave Drav a B plus.
Drop it in the comments if a B plus was already given.
Facts.
In addition to the question of the day.
Yeah. Which is, if you were a gym leader, what would your type be? Mine would be fighting.
Electric.
I don't remember the answer I gave, but I really kind of teetered between like Dark and Dragon.
I can see that.
Wait, what do you mean?
Your name is Gray Zepper.
And?
Shad's
You have two dark types.
Shad's team. Hi,
Go
Shad. So Shad is the undisputed best coach in Mystic. I don't know if you guys knew that.
What?
How facetious are you being?
No, shut up, Chris. He's so good. No, he's pretty good. We just like to give him shit because he's Shad. But yeah, here he is. This team took me a minute because I went back and forth on it a lot of what I thought. I did land on I like it. I did land on that. I think it has one of the most interesting offensive cores in the league because I think it's really nice to trap steel types for Latios. And Sylveon for that matter. And Sylveon also pressures dragons that want to force out Latios, like potential Scarf dragons that want to force out Latios. Incineroar's great Intimidate and a great switch into Dark types. Latios is well supported. I feel like that much is very apparent. However, I don't feel much else is. Because there is a synergy with Dugtrio and Sylveon, right? But what like defensive synergy is really? I mean, Incineroar's a good fire. There's the Fortress Rotom combination. Tentacruel is really nice. Defensively, I will always stand by that. But the way I view Tentacruel is a little bit different than your typical wall. It does have a great special defense stat, but it has an average HP stat and super bad regular defenses. So it's very susceptible to mixed attackers. So I feel that you really run this with a lot of speed a lot to sort of help stall break with things like Acid Spray and Toxic Spikes. But he might view it as a more specially defensive wall and a good fire resist for the Fortress Rotom combo. Who knows? But yeah, I would say it also just lacks setup and decent speed overall. There's like 2 Mons on the team that are above base 100, if I'm correct. So it's really slow, which there's never necessarily inherently something wrong with, but I also don't think it's that sustainable because it's literally just Wish passing Sylveon potentially and Pain Split Rotom. So it has a lot of good aspects, and I think it is certainly a good team, but I get confused on where to rate it because I feel like the defense isn't quite there, but it's good, and the offense isn't quite there, but it's good. You know what I mean? So that's why it's kind of where it's at for me. A lot of times, a lot of coaches have actually in this setting not seen a lot of success with Mega Latios. I've seen a lot of the coaches say that they prefer regular Latios because of the ability to run items and the fact that they're the same speed tier. You basically trade off about 30 base points of special attack instead of an item, which Life Orb, Specs, Scarfs typically make up for that difference, especially whenever you factor in like Calm Mind. Mega Latios, I also think it's bulkier for sure, making it easier to set up Calm Minds, but it's not like game breaking, the bulk difference between regular Latios and Mega, right? So that's kind of, a lot of people think Mega Latias is bannable, which I believe it is banned in our league.
Mhm.
But yeah, Mega Latios, not so much. So we will see how he performs. I think that this team is, I'd say either another B or B minus. I like it more than some of the others. It's just not off. It's like pure balance to me, like not offensive enough and not defensive enough.
I just look at this team and I'm like, holy fuck, this is fat. It's got the dual wish passers. It's got a bunch of bulky mons like Intimidate, Incineroar, Fortress, Type Null, Tentacruel, Rotom even. Like, there's a lot of mons that are going to take a few hits to effectively take down. I know you were really excited to draft Dark Trio. I feel like it's not super needed on this team, especially while you said it does help Latios. Latios does get Aura Sphere and Mystical Fire this generation, so steals aren't as major an issue as they once were. You're very much lacking in special offense without Latios. I believe the next best special stat being Sylveon, so maybe you're running a lot of offensive Sylveons with this draft. I'm not entirely sure why Haunter is here other than just to fill a ghost role, because you already had Tentacruel for poison with the best poison move in the game, Acid Spray.
Yep, facts.
Type Null also has no reason to be on this draft with Autono, especially as they're both tier 5 normal types, because they're both just bulky ass normal types. And Autono is probably just going to be the superior one most weeks anyway. Solrock was an interesting choice. I believe it's one of your 3 rockers, with Fortress and Dugtrio being the other 2. Dugtrio is probably never running rocks, but Fortress is reliably running them most weeks it comes. But Solrock is just an interesting option when you already had that psychic type in Megalati to begin with. In terms of removal, you do have 2 spinners and 2 defoggers, Lottie being one of them. Just an all around, I feel a bit more passive than you may have intended kind of team. I'd probably give this a C minus.
All
Frey,
right.
what you got?
I actually like this team. I like. I then again, I'm also of a mind of. I kind of fall into a couple different categories of either wanting wanting to see glass cannons and just like all out brawls, or I like seeing that balance where you almost have an answer for everything. It may not be the best answer, but it's a correct answer.
Man hasn't played a game of draft and he already hates stop. Love it.
As he should.
But like it's honestly because my attention span is short and I play tanks and or I don't even play tanks. I play brutes whenever I play like video games and stuff. I like going in and hitting shit hard and relying on other people to heal me. I am toxic, but
Man, did love Baldur's Gate then? It's weird that you won't get the game.
oh man, make it go on sale.
Am I interrupting something?
But honestly, I like having that balance. I like that being what you go for and not trying to pick out the perfect counter for every single thing. I like having that kind of general answer to a lot of things, which honestly does make this rank higher for me. I would personally go like even A minus because it
Whoa.
is balance. It knows that it wants balance, and that's what it achieved.
All right.
You heard it here, folks. Shad has the best team in the draft, as expected.
So far.
That's the best coach with the best team. So fitting.
Honestly, also, why do you keep calling him Shad?
I don't know because I want to.
I hope it annoys him.
Shoddy.
Shad.
Shoddy with a body.
Okay, we're gonna have to see my disgustingness again for a second.
Okay, we're gonna talk about our
And your
team.
draft, too.
Are we gonna talk about our teams, Lily?
At the end?
You want to, or do you care? Because it
We
doesn't really benefit them at all to hear about our teams.
we can just briefly go over
Okay.
like
I'll-
pros and cons.
I'll take a look.
As long as we're talking about as long as you talk about me, I talk about you.
Okay. Is it my turn?
Yeah.
No, it's not. I just did Shad.
That's true.
Yeah.
Shad, dude.
Shad?
Pick who you want to talk about. I don't care.
Joker is probably one of the more threatening teams in the league. He has a solid offense in mons like Gallade, Chandelure, Crocodile, and then he paired with so decent defense mons like Corviknight, the unkillable bird, Weezing, uh, and then Appleton, Regirock, Articuno, all decent mons. His speed tiers are a little iffy, with Jolteon dropping all the way down to... Oh, no, wait. No, his speeds are actually pretty good. Jolteon dropping to Inteleon, dropping to Gallade. So it goes down 10 points with each mon, it seems like.
Until it gets to Crook, right?
Yeah, then it drops off a little. It goes from, I believe, Gallade all the way down to Crook.
Which is a pretty big gap, but it at least pressures most base 100s.
Pretty big gap, but I don't think anything maybe a Heliolisk could get away with. Like a modest nature.
I think what I came up with is like modest Scarf 108s or Adamant.
Yes, you did mention that.
Yeah, like that could be a problem, I guess, which isn't uncommon.
Your hazard setters maybe aren't the greatest. You have Regirock, which is not the most common bring. A fine Mon, but kind of hard to get in. Araquanid will effectively run Sticky Web as its water type move the Mon, meaning nothing else on it really matters. Crocodile sometimes can run rocks. Weezing may get that Toxic Spike on its move pool from time to time. But more or less, you're probably not getting up hazards week to week. Maybe your special offense is a little lacking with because you do have two powerful physical offensive mons with Gallade and Crook. But then you're kind of just Chandelure and Jolteon for special.
And Teleon.
And Teleon too, but I feel like its move pool. Well, Jolteon too. Both of their move pools are kind of lacking in what they would prefer to have. Defense-wise, I think Corv and Weezing are going to be your most common brings, with Appleton and Regirock occasionally picking up the rear. Articuno, I just personally find kind of hard to bring.
And then
because
Crook can run some choice defensive sets.
Yeah. Araquanid's more like a tank than a defensive mon. And then recovery-wise, you're actually pretty one of the more solid teams, with Articuno having Roost, Corv having Roost, Appleton having Recover, Weezing having Pain Split. So the majority of your walls have some way to keep themselves alive, which is good. You got anything, IL?
I covered a lot of it. Bouffalin's useless. Maybe do something else there. Nah, but it's probably the best tier 5 normal available.
What do you mean? It's better Tauros.
Because
I mean,
Tauros
is it better?
moved up. Tauros is usually tier 5. But we moved it up.
Joker should draft Zangoose.
And make a trade with Zephyr there.
Yeah.
Nah.
But I like it too. I think it's the best team that we've talked about. It brings more offensively than most of the teams because of just Galley being so good and not needing a lot of support to kind of wreak havoc, and then bringing Crook to stop fat psychics, as well as Chandelure to help with again fat psychics. And then as for opposing flying, Corviknight's one of the best switch-ins. Just this is how you draft around a mega and around like a mon right here. So I think it's actually probably a B+. I don't think anybody drafted A in the whole league, to be honest.
I'd probably give this one more of an A-.
Yeah. I'm a bit more critical on my rankings. Like, I think that I look at this team and I'm like, well, it could use more initiative, could use more solid rockers, things like that. Like, I'm just hard to please.
He says he's more
Yeah,
critical
you are.
as I'm the one giving most of the lower scores.
Yeah, shout out to Triple F minus.
But you are the only one that gave an A so far.
No, he's not.
Why I said that.
Shad has the best team. Did you forget already?
I literally just gave an A.
I literally did.
Rude.
Okay, so I am the only one that hasn't given. That's what I meant to say. And I probably won't.
I'm out
In fact,
here.
I know I won't. In fact, I know I won't. Yeah.
Ooh.
My heart.
Rip your team, Lily.
Trash team.
Honestly.
It is. It's stall.
Gross. In this economy?
Hi, guys. Raw Salad and Valor. How you doing? Yo, Ursaring was a must on this team. Like, Valor, absolutely refused not to have either Ursaring or Greedent on this team. I think they chose the right mon. What do you guys think?
Greedent's cuter.
I hate Greedent, so I think Ursaring's better.
Why does Greedent look like a Disney character?
I'm Greedent. I don't know what it is about Greedent. Maybe it's because I've been pulling TCG and I keep getting Greedent VMAXs and I hate it because it's useless.
Because it's beautiful.
Yeah,
No.
I'm gonna be a little less hard on this team than Lil might, because I do kind of get where they were coming from, and I do like it in that sense. Drag Rapid Strike is so good, and it's gonna be pretty freaking unchecked throughout the metagame because of Drag's great coverage and Rapid Strike being so good at dealing with its defensive switch-ins because of coverage moves. For fairies, you just click Rapid Strike anyway, right? Surging Strikes. You just click Surging Strikes anyway. But for grasses, that's super effective U-turns there, or even poison jabs. And for again ghost types, basically any of the fighting answers, strikes. It's that good of a move. And then drag helps pick up that slack as well, being so fast and being able to they can pivot into each other. Really solid. And the rest of the offense on the team is an ice cream cone, mainly, is the next biggest hitter, which is very funny to me. That would be the next strongest of those two. But then Lycanrock's right there too. You could argue that they're interchangeable. I only say that because Hail Boosted Blizzards, I'm pretty sure, is going to out DPS anything Lycanrock can do. If you talk about hitting 2 neutral targets.
Are you about to disregard offensive Arcanine?
I think I am. Because offensive Arcanine isn't as good as those two. It has a lower attack stat. What are you talking about?
But it has higher base power moves.
Barely. No, it doesn't, right? No, Blizzard is
Flare?
110, isn't it?
Yep.
I'll be damned. Blizzard is 110. All right, Arcanine's the best mod in the game. Send the video.
Change our mind.
This is some pretty, like, Vanillix is next up, which is funny. But then there's also, like, Galvantula support with webs for Urshifu and Lycanroc. And then it spams Compound Ice Thunders, and Arcanine can hit pretty hard. It's like a really good bulky offense team. Granbull is one of the defensive mods, has base 120 attack. Skuntank is fun on this team because it's only weak to ground and supports Dragapult really well with its ghost weakness. Steelix Gligar can look a little redundant, but it is nice to have more rockers on a team that does struggle with rocks. And Steelix and Gligar do share a water weakness for being ground types. And I'm not saying that it's super well supported because Urshifu doesn't like being burned and Celebi is it, really. And then, of course, like I always say, water types get Ice Beam, so that's kind of a problem for Celebi. But Celebi also has extremely great natural defenses where the not stab Ice Beam probably won't hurt as much. You can say the same thing for Great Dilly earlier, possibly, but that's kind of matchup dependent. There are going to be some good water types that can break Cradilly and Celebi, obviously. And then defensively, it lacks, to be honest. Like, Celebi's okay, pretty good. Arcanine's really good. Skunktank's situational. Steelix is a mega that's situational. Gligar just so many situational defensive picks. And yes, it does make it to where it's a very versatile defensive core and you can bring a lot of different things each week. But they're situational for a reason. They're not the game's best. So they don't really have any of the game's best defense, other than, of course, Arcanine being the best all-around mon ever existed.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that was definitely my thoughts. It's like a, you know what? I'll even say it like a C+ team.
An A minus?
I was waiting for this man to give an A after just saying.
No, I wouldn't. It does, like I said, it has its weaknesses and it does struggle with overall utility, and it also struggles to like clean up games. Like Urshifu's a great breaker and Dragapult's a good sweeper, but he doesn't really have any secondary sweepers. I'm sorry, not he. They don't really have any secondary sweepers.
I mean, they're both a he,
Right, but
to my knowledge.
and to be honest, I really should disregard Valor as a player because he barely helps.
He's the reason why I didn't fight earlier this week.
Yep. So word on the street is Mintine was the most high demand undrafted fawn this season, and this was another team that was planning to pick it up. I'm not sure why they didn't when their water type is a more offensive one, because that could easily have been the Gligar spot otherwise and filled the more or less same role that they were looking for. I'm not sure what happened there. It'd also be another mon.
It does make the team a little rough, because then it's just Steelix and Lycanroc.
But also it's a burn absorber.
That's also facts. Facts are us.
Facts are us. I think there is a bit of a concern that your best offensive special attacker is Vanillux. Dragapult is a fine mon, but base 100's attack is not the greatest. It hits hard when it clicks a Draco, but even Shadow Ball, it maybe isn't going to be the hardest hitting move you want week to week.
He has that again in Celebi too.
Celebi too, yeah. A fine mon, but it does kind of need setup to become a threat. I think Galvantula might actually have no, I think it has less special attack.
91.
That sounds correct. which is coincidentally the same accuracy as Thunder's coming from it. Yeah, but you did draft Arcanine, so I feel this is probably a B+ team.
My week 1.
So don't say.
We're done.
All right.
No,
Just watch out.
okay. I get to talk 2 times in a row. Fuck
mean-
Or I
this.
can talk about you first.
Yeah, he could just talk. Yeah.
Nope. 2 times. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Isle Kid. He drafted a pretty solid team, honestly. Mega Arrow is a massive threat that you have to acknowledge, but even more so than that, Genesect is a mon that can fuck with your brain because of that download ability. Trying to like force the boosts where you think it'll more benefit you rather than your opponent is going to be a great struggle in prep, or your opponent's just going to be able to take advantage of your team if you choose to ignore it. Haxorus is a massive threat. Ranunculus is a mon you have to acknowledge and prep, or it can easily sweep you with bulky setup sets, or even run interesting sets like Regen AV. Zarude is a surprisingly tough to deal with mon, even with just dual stab, as jungle healing is surprisingly a more viable move than you would think it would be with how little it heals. But just that ability to self-remove status conditions is very good for the mon, especially a mon that doesn't like burns otherwise. Regice has Bolt Beam and nothing else. Salazzle is a bit of a niche mon, but it does what it does so well, and that's like toxic stall down teams that don't want to take too much chip. Seismitoad is a both great defensive mon and a surprisingly threatening offensive mon with very little to swap into its coverage options. Sock is probably easily the best tier 5 fighting type. Aromatisse is a fat fuck, and I have no interest in ever drafting that mon personally, but wish passes from this mon are going to be tough to deal with. Kecleon with Protean is a tricky mon to deal with, but the speed tier kind of betrays a lot. And last, but certainly not least, Rotom is a good utility mon. Volt switching, defogging, pain splitting, will-o-wisping. It does whatever you need it week to week when you feel the need to bring it. I'd probably would give this team a solid A.
A best team in the league, boys. Let's go.
No, that's Shed. Still.
That's
yeah,
right. That's right.
Yeah, that one got 2 A's. Actually, no, I don't think it did. I'm misremembering.
Gray should probably go next.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one who is teaching me about League and Draft and everything like that. All of these Pokemon have a purpose. None of them are just there to haphazardly fill a slot or a role that he was kind of searching for.
I wish you said all of these mons have a purpose, but I just don't know what that purpose is.
I mean, do I? Absolutely not. But
Maybe Regice was just there because I wanted a nice type. Maybe. Who knows?
All right.
You know
Well,
what? It helps pressures dragons for Haxorus and Aerodactyl. There it is. For Aerodactyl, what am I talking about? It helps pressures dragons and ices for Haxorus and Aerodactyl. There it is. Look at that. Finding synergy right there.
There you go. See? So my point stands, although not as true as it was. But, I mean, the kid is one of the people who has 50 different plans going through their head based on how he drafted. I'm sure he has like 2 or 3 ideas for every single matchup he has this season. Because I've spoken to him in length, and I feel like he bleeds fucking HP, and so I mean, all in all, I can't say like how good each mon is for the roles that he's deciding to run them for, because I don't know. But I would say I'd give this one an A minus, just because like I don't see this being like that perfect balance or like the glass cannon or anything like that. I see this as being longevity.
I do stand by my grade, but there is one major issue with this team being the lack of defog despite having a Mega Arrow. Realistically, Rotom is the only one safely coming in on rocks to remove them, while Arrow is taking 25% if it wants to run defog, as well as his hazards being pretty low, with Seismitoad and Arrow being the only rock setters, I believe. Oh, and Kecleon.
Yep. I think I got like a B team. B or B plus team. You guys definitely were a lot nicer than I. Yeah, no, I mean it's really offensive. That was my main idea. I wanted the core of Genesect and Aerodactyl. And I'm experimenting with utility in general. I was talking about it a lot. That's why my team is so low. I would honestly say this wasn't for the fact that I was lacking utility. And I want to see if I'm wrong about that. That's what this season's kind of meant for. And week 1, I already kind of ran into problems with that. I had a hard time with rocks. But Lily undervalues Aerodactyl as a defogger all the time. He always will. But whatever, right?
Probably because it's taking 25% to defog.
Probably, but it's okay. It's okay, Lil.
Lol, just run boots.
If I ever did anything to
Oh,
change
wait.
the team, I'd probably pick up like another spinner or something. But Lil's right. I don't like spinners.
Hitmonchan is right there, though.
Hitmonchan is right there. You know what? Who needs Sock? That's actually really a good trade for me. Maybe I should do that. Isn't Hitmonchan tier 5 though?
I think it's 4.
The fact that Sock is tier 5 and Hitmonchan is tier 4 is really.
Does that trigger you?
It's just embarrassing. I mean, Sock already got like 2 or 3 kills, so it's whatever. I'll take it. Okay, then Lily's team drafted Mega Camera up 2nd round. Terrible team. First round actually. Isn't that right? This is your first overall pick. Was Mega Camera up?
Wink, 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 wink.
Yeah, it's first overall pick.
If you go back and look, it shows.
Like I would say this team is really fairy weak because Cobaliant's not a fairy resist, and Camerupt is more offensive. But I just have a hard time saying any team with a chance because Chansey just absorbs all the Moonblast. And even when you start setting up, Chansey doesn't care. It's just going to poison you and absorb all the Moonblast. Like it's so insane. And then Dustox, how could I forget, is another top tier fairy resist on this team.
Yes. Thank you.
So the Chansey Slowbro combination is just super what's a better word for dickish? What's a better word for that? It's just you're just a POS, honestly, for that, man. Like
I'm a bully.
it's stall player, honestly.
Sheesh.
Not as much lack of rocks as me though. Actually, quite a deep pool of rockers. But yeah, I would definitely say that your team is lacking offensively. Cobalion is very underwhelming setup. And as much as I love Noivern, you really don't want it to be stay breakers. I know Mega Camerupt is supposed to be, but it's just not. It's really just Noivern, Heliolisk, and Camerupt, and for the breaking part, at least specially, and then physically, it's maybe even less with just like Rillaboom and Mimikyu. And I guess Floatzel. So yeah, it's really fat, but it's just not offensive enough for me. So I just give it a B plus, just because I know that this team could utilize setup and good play to be and generate enough offensive pressure, but I just feel like that's going to be hard to do. I'll even kind of knock it down to a B. I give it a B.
Ooh.
My heart.
I
think like
see.
I just want to give it a B plus because it's Lily, which we can't
Right.
do.
Honestly, I see a lot of good potential here. Like, funny story, your battle was actually the first one I watched at all in draft. And I was telling Kid about this. I was terrified because watching a replay, I thought you guys were all making those moves like in real time for that replay.
No.
And
not.
so I went to Kid, I was like, I'm terrified because watching everyone just like click instantly, I feel like I'm way out of my depth. But like I know that you can make this
I mean,
team
real talk,
work.
I make those decisions pretty fast, though.
Yeah, which I'm terrified of you. um but I see the potential of this team. I see the synergies that it has, the pivoting, just like dealing with the different things that get thrown at you. I would give this one from like not as much of a like analytic viewpoint as Kid. I would give this one a base A, I would say.
Better than mine?
That's based.
Okay.
Yeah, your team based. I'll say it.
All right. All right. Well, that was not a power ranking. That was Poketalk, I guess you could say. This was a just rough rankings of all the teams with little bits of letter grades at the end. I thank my awesome co-hosts for joining me for this.
And me too.
Yes, and I think this video is going on Zepper's channel, right?
I was just gonna email it to you because
It's your
I
recording,
don't
man. You can have it.
I don't have that much time to edit.
Well, I wasn't gonna edit this either. I was just gonna post the raw footage, honestly.
Oh, fair. Well,
Yes.
okay. This may go up a day or two after it's done because I will need to
Tisk,
sync
tisk.
up audio.
Okay, cool. But thank you so much for watching, guys. As I'll always say, closing out in regular power rankings, feel free to reach out to us about your own personal rankings and opinions. We have a Discord server where we're very active in, at least most of us. And we are more than happy to tell you that you're wrong. More than happy.
Absolutely. Yeah, put them in the comments. Maybe my channel can actually get some activity after
There it is.
No.
5 years.
There it is. And thank you guys for watching. Hope everybody had a really nice holiday and New Year's. I know it's a little after those times, but we were definitely thinking about you guys, and we'd hope that everybody's doing well right now. And thank you for watching, and have a great rest of your day, evening, night, whatever. Screw y'all and bye.
And when you do reach out, please keep within 6 feet. There is a pandemic going on.
There is.
Honestly,
Yes.